Hello everyone, this video will cover Module 8. So Module 8 is the halfway point of the semester. You will have the opportunity to review the class and a midpoint survey. It's also an opportunity for extra credit. This is also a really good time to check your grades. If you haven't been keeping track of them, it's a really good idea to go to the grades tab and see what grades you've been getting on your assignments. You can kind of predict your grade for the semester if you want, but really just keeping track of what assignments you've completed and checking the feedback that you've gotten, making sure you're doing everything okay. If there is a 0 in there for something that you turned in, or if there is points missing, I always leave feedback as to why you might have missed some points, or what you're missing out, if you submitted the wrong file or something like that. So you can always send me an email if you need to, but it's really important just to keep track of those if you haven't looked yet. So this is Module 8. We are moving on for this module to the comparison contrast essay. This essay is kind of the big essay for the class. It's the one with the most criteria. For some students, it's the most difficult essay just because we're using more than one source for this essay, and you're expected to really increase what you've been working on this semester. So it's kind of the most challenging. It's supposed to be the most challenging one. And we'll take more than one module for this essay as well. So the first thing that you'll want to do is take a look at the comparison and contrast readings. There is a whole chapter on comparison and what it is and how to plan an essay like that, how to structure an essay and that kind of thing. So take a look through this chapter and really, get into that information. Some of you may have written a comparison before. This type of essay is you approach it differently from how you might approach a different type of essay. So then once you're done with that, you want to make sure that you take the quiz, standard quiz like we've done before, and then read through the essay assignment. So the assignment for this essay is to pick two entities that can be compared. Students generally tend to pick things that are either very similar or very different. And so like you might pick something that a lot of people confuse with each other. So like communism and fascism, or electric and acoustic guitars, or EMTs and paramedics, nurses and nurse practitioners. So those are the types of things that people will often just like interchange the words. And so an essay like that would be really interesting to point out the differences, particularly if it's something that you already know a little bit about, or you're already interested in, or like if you're going into the medical field or something like that. So, if you want to do physical therapist versus an occupational therapist or something like that, that might actually be helpful for you if you're thinking of that as a pathway and trying to decide, which type of therapist you want to do. So anyway, you may decide to do two things that are very similar, or you may decide to do two things that are very different that people often see as opposites. So my example within the modules is Democrats and Republicans, because we're very divisive, and right now in particular in our country, everything is one or the other. You can't be in the middle. And so pointing out similarities between them would be more interesting, because a lot of people automatically just kind of go to the differences. So we want to make sure that your essay is providing us with kind of an interesting perspective on these two, and making sure that the reader is getting something out of it. So in that case, pointing out similarities. So things that like two different religions, Christianity and Islam, Christianity and Judaism. A lot of people will see those as opposites or extremely different. And so pointing out similarities would be more interesting. So you do have to decide on your emphasis, and the emphasis is whether or not you're going to emphasize or cover more similarities or differences. You will cover both within your essay. Because there's no two things that are exactly the same, and so you will always have some differences to cover. However, the emphasis or focus of the essay is going to be one or the other, and so the chapter will kind of help you with that as well. The other thing to remember is that you're not doing a subject by subject comparison, you're doing point by point, which means that to organize your essay, you're focused on main points. So you want to have points that cover both subjects. So if I'm going to cover like the history of the Republican Party, I also need to be able to cover the history of the Democratic Party. So I need to be able to cover both of those, and these will be both in the same paragraph. So I'm going to go back and forth within the paragraph. It's going to be, just about those two subjects within that main point. And so you want to be thinking about, sometimes it takes, you have to kind of rearrange in your head how you want to approach the essay just to get that point by point organization. You do have to have at least 2 sources minimum, and 1 direct quote and 1 paraphrase minimum. Now that is minimum for passing grade. So I would recommend more. However, it's not a research paper. You'll notice it's only 2 to 4 pages. So if you've got 20 sources, that is way too many for this short of an essay. But some students will get, 3 or 4. Some students will find sources that actually compare the 2, and some will find a source for one and a source for the other. So it's really dependent on how you want to approach source finding. So I've got lots of ideas for you as far as topics are concerned. I've got a link to a website, as well as this is a handout that I give in my face-to-face classes. So comparison topics, you can really pick any 2 things that go together, but keep in mind that some will work better than others. You want it to be something that you can do a little bit of research about. You're also not using first person, so it doesn't matter whether or not you have personal experience with it. So like if you play soccer, that's fine, but you're not going to be talking about your own experience if you decide to compare it to football. You're just comparing with content. So I get, sports, very interesting. I get a lot of like baseball and softball type of topics, or maybe 2, athletes would be fine. If you're interested in history, a lot of good papers on things like Greek and Roman gods. You could do World War I and World War II, although they're kind of broad, so you may want to narrow down to like the airplanes in World War I and World War II or something like that, so that we get something more specific. You can compare 2 people, you compare organizations, you can compare theories, you can compare, like if you are homeschooled, you could do homeschool versus public school. Like there's so many different topics that you could pick, and this is just a fraction of them. A lot of animals make good topics, so I've got, squids and octopus, toads and frogs, just things that, people are often like confusing with each other's. So lots of different ideas for you. So what you're going to do is, here's some pre-writing resources, just so that you can, if you need some help with coming up with like a Venn diagram, an informal outline, that kind of thing, thesis statements, coming up with a thesis statement. So I've got a bunch of different resources for you here. In particular, the Venn diagram can be difficult. So I do have a link to Canva, which is, you can use the like free Venn diagram template if you want to, which is helpful, or you can draw one using your Word document or whatever. Just sometimes kind of like the formatting looks weird, which is fine. Or you can hand draw one if you want and take a picture of it and submit it. So the pre-writing journal is like we've done before, just taking you through those steps. So you're just doing like a Word document. You're going to brainstorm first, 20 pairs of words that you can come up with. Any pairings can work, just as many as you can think of. And then you're going to free write over at least one of them. 1 or 2 of your favorite pairings. So ones that you feel like are complex enough to write an essay over, and then about 250 words. So give me a 10-minute free write. And then the third entry is a Venn diagram or something that helps us to see. Sometimes students will do columns too, so like similarities and differences, or they'll do the differences on the outside. They'll have 3 columns, and they'll do differences on the outside and similarities in the middle, or just like an informal outline with main points would also work. It just kind of depends on how you want to put it together. That's just ideas for your essay. And then working thesis, and then on the resources page there's a handout with the examples or thesis statements that are really important to follow, because writing a thesis statement for a comparison essay is very difficult. It does not flow together like most other types of thesis statements. So it's set up as a personal discussion board. I'm going to change this to just a Word document because we've had trouble with the discussion. So that will be changed when you actually get in to look at this. So the last thing in the module is an opportunity for extra credit, midpoint survey. It's worth 0 points, but if you do it, then it's 5 points extra credit. It's anonymous. It just gives me some feedback on the class. If you have any suggestions for the second half of the semester, anything you'd like to see, let me know. If you have questions, you can always send me an email. Otherwise, I hope you have a great week.